are these people?
Rip John Pilger.
It needs to be talked about, though.
Yes, I wanted to bring this up only because I wanted to let people know who don't know why this is a sad story. So, but we'll start with the news. It was with great sadness the family of John Pilger announced he died yesterday, 30 December in 2023 in London, aged 84. His journalism and documentaries were celebrated around the world, but to his family, he was simply the most amazing and loved dad, granddad, and partner. Rest in power. Here's Indy, devastated to wake up to this news. John was a legend. So sorry to hear this. We gave him a much-deserved Indie Media Award this year. Condolences to his family. Roger Waters. John Pilger, I miss you, my friend. What a great man you were. We will carry you in our hearts forever. You will always be there to give us strength. Love, Roger. Max Blumenthal. John Pilger's documentaries are historically significant exposés of the cruelty and connivances of U.S. empire. I hope that's right.
Yep.
In which he gave voice to resistance movements still struggling for their sovereignty. Films like his 1983 Nicaragua, A Nation's Right to Survive, inspired my own work, as did the messages of encouragement and insights he sent me and my colleagues, unlike so many of his contemporaries who fell into a fog of liberalism late in life. Pilger's critiques of empire only sharpened with time. Sadly, he left us today, but his body of work will only grow more relevant in the cataclysmic years ahead. Jeremy Corbin, I am deeply saddened to hear the passing of John Pilger. John gave voice to the unheard and the occupied in Australia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Chile, Iraq, East Timor, Palestine, and beyond. Thank you for your bravery in pursuit of the truth. It will never be forgotten. Glenn Greenwald, ripped to one of the most intrepid, independent, and stalwart journalists and documentarians, John Pilger. His longtime anti-imperialism placed him on the international left, but he was refused to be enslaved to them, arguing Hillary was more dangerous than Trump. One more point on John Pilger. He is seen as a left-wing anti-imperialist hero his whole life, but he saw through the scam of Russiagate and heaped scorn on not only the liberals but parts of the left who joined in this neocon CIA fraud, calling it a coup against Trump. Aaron Mate ripped to John Pilger, who tirelessly and fearlessly exposed Western crimes against the global South, a master at his craft whose integrity was unmatched. Miko Peled, who we've had on the show, rest in power. Shocked and saddened to hear that John Pilger is no longer with us. Kit Clarenberg, in 1984, John Pilger exposed how the SAS were training Pol Pot's forces so they had to flee. This is journalism, and this is what the British government is so afraid of people knowing. They're now effectively illegalized what he practiced. Rest in power. So, Claire Daly, total respect for crusading, fearless, legendary John Pilger. They don't make journalism like him these days, and the world is a darker place for it. Greatest tribute to his memory, take up the issues he championed, free Palestine, free Assange, and hold power to account. Rip John. Low key underneath her. You can watch his important film here, which he leaves. Richard Medhurst, deeply saddened to hear of John Pilger's passing. He always fought against imperialism, whether in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia. By doing his job and telling the truth, there are not many like him left in this field. Anya Parampil, John Pilger's countless documentaries provided my blueprint for understanding the world, and I have always considered his style to be the standard in war reporting and news presenting. There truly was no one else like him, ripped to a true giant. Stefania Marizzi, rest in power. Caitlin Johnstone, another giant falls. Few have influenced, inspired me as much as this legendary Australian. We must all now strive harder and shine brighter to help fill the void he has left. Comrade Misty, this is horribly sad. So, I wanted to bring this, Care Bear. So this is from Kiji. No, I hope that's how you pronounce your name. And you wrote the Pilger's rap sheet on the criminal elite. The head of the British Independent Television Authority once called Pilger a threat to Western civilization. high praise.
Yes.
So John Pilger was always on the side of the oppressed. He denounced empire and all its violent predations, war, genocide, exploitation, as well as its endless lies and propaganda. Till his death on Saturday, he fought tirelessly for the freedom of Julian Assange. In his last article, "We Are All Spartacus," published in Consortium News, was a call to stand with the imprisoned publisher. We covered that on the show.
You covered that.
I also included in the description below the link to his last essay, which was published in Declassified Australia. Please go read that. So his filmography and writing is a rap sheet of the unceasing criminality of empire and capitalism. Arguably, giving him the best homage he could receive, Sir Robert Fraser, head of the British Independent Television Authority, once called Pilger a threat to Western civilization. Pilger was also prophetic. In 1970, he chronicled the insurrection of troops against the Vietnam War in The Quiet Mutiny. In 1974, and again in 2002, he spoke out that Palestine is still the issue, demanding that the occupation of Palestine should end now. He warned about Japanese militarism and revisionism. So, link to this article will be in the description below, and links to all these things are highlighted in that article. You can click them, go to them. I highly suggest you do. Here is a snippet of Palestine is Still the Issue. I think it's the trailer for that. So, let me play that.
I made a film called Palestine is Still the Issue. It was about a nation of people, the Palestinians, forced off their land and later subjected to a military occupation by Israel, an occupation condemned by the United Nations and almost every country in the world, including Britain. But Israel is backed by a very powerful friend, the United States. So in 25 years, if we're to speak of the great injustice here, nothing has changed. What has changed is that the Palestinians have fought back. Stateless and humiliated for so long, they've risen up against Israel's huge military machine, although they themselves have no army, no tanks, no American planes and gunships or missiles. Some have committed desperate acts of terror, like suicide bombing. But for Palestinians, the overriding routine terror, day after day, has been the ruthless control of almost every aspect of their lives, as if they live in an open prison. This film is about the Palestinians and a group of courageous Israelis united in the oldest human struggle to be free.
It wasn't personal. This is the way they treat all Palestinians. I'm sorry to say this, but they'd rather help an animal than an Arab.
Last October, she was about to give birth to her second child, and she and her husband set out for the nearby hospital. They were stopped at an Israeli roadblock where they pleaded to be let through.
We offered to walk to the hospital, but they wouldn't let us through. Then my baby. My mother-in-law used a razor to cut the umbilical cord. The boy started crying. My husband wrapped him in his jacket. One of his relatives found a black route to drove us to the hospital. But the baby had died by the time we arrived.
Palestinians try to lead a normal life, but life is never normal. During Israeli military operations, curfews stop everything. Ambulances are denied access to the sick and wounded. Children are stopped from going to school. The Israelis claim this is necessary for their security. If that's true, it's clearly not working. And the security of Palestinians is almost never mentioned.
Sound about right?
Sounds about right.
Yep. And he was getting it right back then. When do you think that footage was taken? Like
70s, 80s at least.
Yeah. So,
5 years ago.
So in 2014, he warned that Ukraine, a CIA theme park, was prepping a NATO-run guerrilla war that is likely to spill into Russia itself 7 years ago, when only a few were aware, and even fewer were speaking out. In short words and articles, he released a full-length, full-throated documentary warning that the U.S. was escalating catastrophically to the coming war with China. Pilger was not only a powerful critical journalist and world-changing filmmaker. Cambodia Year Zero was considered one of the most influential documentaries in the 20th century. He was also a craftsman, a poet, artist. He understood the power of language and understood that in a medium restricted by word counts, every word counts. But it was Pilger's rich, resonant delivery, like a Shakespearean actor, that always struck me. It contained the unmistakable, unimpeachable courage of moral integrity, a voice that knows it is speaking the truth. You will hear many things about him in the days to come, but Pilger's own words are most insightful. The following from an interview with Michael Albert at CNET. On the form of journalism, in all these forms, the aim should be to find out as many facts and as much of the truth as possible. There's no mystery. Yes, we all bring a personal perspective to work. That's our human right. Mine is to be skeptical of those who seek to control us. Indeed, of all authority that isn't accountable, and not to accept official truths which are often lies. Journalism is, or ought to be, the agent of people, not power, the view from the ground.
Wow.
On making a difference, the aim of good journalism is, or ought to be, to give people the power of information, without which they cannot claim certain freedoms. It's as straightforward as that. Now and then, you do see the effects of a particular documentary or series of reports. In Cambodia, more than 50 million were given by the public entirely unsolicited following my first film, and my colleagues and I were able to use this to buy medical supplies, food, and clothing. Several governments changed their policies as a result. Something similar happened following the showing of my documentary on East Timor, filmed most of it in secret. Did it affect the situation in East Timor? No, but it did contribute to the long years of tireless work by people all over the world. On social media, ironically, they can separate us even further from each other and close us in a bubble world of smartphones and fragmented information and magpie commentary. Thinking is more fun, I think. On U.S. foreign policy, I seldom use the almost respectable term U.S. foreign policy. U.S. designs for the world is the correct term, surely. These designs have been running along a straight line since 1944, when the Bretton Woods Conference ordained the U.S. as the #1 imperial power. The line has known occasional interruptions, such as the retreat from Saigon and the triumph of the Sandinistas, but the design has never changed. They are to dominate humanity, which has changed. What has changed is that they are often disguised by the modern power of public relations, a term Edwin Bernays invented during the First World War because the Germans have given propaganda a bad name. On the economy, with every administration, it seems the aims are spun further into the realm of fantasy while becoming more and more extreme. Bill Clinton, still known by the terminally naive as a progressive, actually upped the ante on the Reagan administration. With the inequities of NAFTA and assorted killing around the world, what is especially dangerous today is that the U.S. willfully and criminally collapsed economy, collapsed for ordinary people, and the unchallenged preeminence of the parasitical defense industries have followed a familiar logic that leads to greater militarism, bloodshed, and economic hardship. On peace activism, the current spoiling for a fight with China is a symptom of this, as is the invasion of Africa. I find it remarkable that I have lived my life without having been blown to bits in a nuclear holocaust ignited by Washington. What this tells me is that popular resistance across the rest of the world is potent and much feared by the bully. Look at the hysterical pursuit of WikiLeaks, or, if not feared, it's disorienting for the master. That's why those of us who regard peace as a normal state of human affairs are in for a long haul, and faltering along the way is not an option, really. On the future, I'm confident that if we remain silent while the U.S. war state, now rampant, continues on its bloody path, we bequeath to our children and grandchildren a world with apocalyptic climate, broken dreams of a better life for all, and, as the unlamented General Patrius put it, a state of perpetual war. Do we accept that, or do we fight back? Thoughts, Care Bear?
I actually can see the influence that he has had.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the journalists that you and Indy have kind of featured in independent media, and I think it's so. And I said this to you off camera. I think it's a shame that even in independent media, like I saw Indy tweet this out,
Mm-hmm.
and no one else really in independent media did. So, like, obviously, we know like Assange. Like, we've given, like, and shout out to people like Misty who have really, and Richie
Push for that.
Memphis who have pushed for that. But I think, as we say on INN, like, we want to elevate other people whom people may not necessarily know about. And the sad thing is, this is like, John was like a huge deal. And
Yeah.
really, honestly, prior to this weekend when he passed away, I didn't hear about him at all, if not much.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of shows how certain people are kind of elevated even in our space, and then certain people who I'll argue need just as much recognition, maybe if not more, are not given the kind of recognition that that they should get in the space. So I mean, shout out to Indy who has highlighted his work and his name in our network.
Yep.
But it was just kind of sad that others did not, take that kind of same resonance.
And shout out to the networks
as
who
well.
continue to publish him. Like I wouldn't know about him if it wasn't for Indy pushing those networks. So, and you saw at the beginning of this segment, all the people that you should be respecting and following anyway, giving their respect, and most of them
Right.
being like, this is one of the guys that like I learned from. So
Right.
yeah, we definitely lost a good one on that. So hopefully there's some who can step up and fill his place, but those are big shoes to fill. So,
Right.
wear some extra socks.
I think it just makes me, I think it just makes me more thankful in a lot of ways that, we're small, but we definitely have a lane in terms of being able to highlight people like this who deserve to be featured. So yeah, I'm very fortunate, just even in that segment, just to learn about him a little bit more. And now I'm intrigued more in terms of what he meant as far as journalism and how he said truth. But yeah, it's just kind of weird, like, again, like, he should be on the same level as Assange, really.
Yeah.
And it's just
He's
made
up
me
there
wonder
for sure.
why that's the case. I don't know, maybe because he hasn't gone through the torture that Assange is going through, that he's not as well, but all the same, like, he should get as much recognition as Assange does, and other journalists do. But yeah, it's sad.
Definitely. Go look at that article. Go click those documentaries. Go watch them. Low key shared the Palestine documentary he did. It's still important. All that stuff still resonates today. So definitely go check that out. And if you want to leave, get more of this kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
I do want to say something real quick. Where's that? Someone said trying to find it. Yeah. So Leslie Donaldson in the chat said, unfortunately, that it takes someone's staff to highlight the contributions. And I think that's a very important point. Like,
Yeah.
if you like people, especially on social media, who do good work, tell them, let them know, because it can be a lonely field. You can almost, and I think we kind of feel it at times too. It's just kind of like, are we doing anything? Are we really making an impact? Or people really care? Like, that's why we kind of appreciate you guys in telling us, like, the feedback that you give us, and then, the encouragement and the criticism that you give us too. We listen, and we definitely try to improve, and we want to be better at this. So, but I think what Leslie's saying, give people their flowers while they're alive. And so
Definitely.
if there are any journalists or any people on social media who are political that you really like, share their shit, highlight their shit, talk to people about their shit, so that they will continue to be known, and that they
Speaking
feel
of
that appreciation, and they would be encouraged to continue doing the work
speaking of
that they
appreciation,
believe in doing.
Anna Mayers on the Rockfin tipped $10. My favorite day in 2022 was getting to meet Collin in DC, protesting the DOJ to free Assange. He probably doesn't remember me, but it was nice to see a friendly face having traveled from Iowa. That's